Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are starting on part 2 of my witch's hut tutorial and speed build. In part 1 I showed how I created the exterior of my witch's hut and potion shop, so if you're interested in some outside witchy decor, make sure to check out that video as well. In this tutorial we are going to be covering how I created my front room where my resident witch Sabrina brews all the potions that she sells in the shop outside, and the basement where she does... well, I don't really know the specifics of what she gets up to in the basement, but it's creepy. Stay out of the basement. Of course, there are 4 more rooms in this house that I haven't even touched yet, and I will be creating more videos in the series as the fall updates come out and Halloween items become available, so if you want to see how the rest of this hut gets completed through the fall, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That said, let's go ahead and get started on the inside of this hut. My goals when creating these rooms is to make them seem super creepy, but I also want them to feel mysterious and magical. I also want it to feel really old in here, as if when you step into this area, it's just an enchanted space that hasn't been affected by the rest of the island becoming populated. There's a few items that I used to help achieve this effect. The most important items in my opinion are the floor and the wallpaper used as our base. In this front room, I'm going to be using the cloud flooring from Sahara, and the black crown wall, which can be obtained from Nook's Cranny. The reason I'm using the cloud flooring is because I want to gain the effect that the potions being brewed in this room are causing it to become really foggy in here. I've chosen the black crown wall because I noticed with this wallpaper, unlike most other wallpapers, this wallpaper does not have any windows, which prevents any natural light from outside from coming into the room and ruining the dark, creepy effect. So with the outside light completely blocked out, I'm instead going to rely on candles as my main light source through the whole house. This will help with the old, mysterious effect I'm wanting to achieve, as it gives the feeling that there is no electricity in this house. With the main light sources and the base flooring and wallpaper for this room complete, I'm now just laying down any items that I think would fit well in this room. I chose items made out of dark wood, anything that fits in with a dark or gothic theme, or anything that just seemingly glows on its own. Not every item that I placed down here made it into the final product. I'm just throwing down anything that I think will look good, and then fine tune the items as I think of something better or decide that I don't like the way that something looks. If you're recreating this room on your island, this is where you can get really creative and lay down anything that you think fits in well with this theme. However, if you do want to know the exact items that I used in this room, I will be listing all of them for you at the end of the video, so make sure to stick around until then if you want that list. Here in the footage, I'm just walking around the room and getting a feel for how it looks so far with just the furniture items before I lay down any accessory items. I decided that the tool shelf didn't really fit in well with the rest of the room, so I went ahead and removed it. One item that I felt was pretty key to the room was this kettle bathtub right in the middle, where all of the actual potion brewing will take place. I also do like the artisanal bug cage from the bug off tournaments right next to the kettle, because it makes me think that Sabrina puts all the bugs that she catches around the island into this cage and then grabs them to use as potion ingredients. Now I'm just laying down any accessory items and wall decor that I think fits in well with the theme. I'm trying to be really creative and think outside the box, so I'm placing literally any item that I think will look good, not necessarily items that fit in perfectly with the witch theme. I do actually like doing this no matter what the theme is when I'm decorating, because I feel like it creates a sense of wonder for the decor. For example, I don't think it made it through to the end result, but I placed down this coffee grinder, not because I think a coffee grinder fits in necessarily perfectly with witch themed decor, but because it looked good. However, I do still think it works within this room because someone may see it and think, ew, what does she use this for? I kind of imagined that she would use it to grind up the bugs before putting them in the potion for brewing, and I know that's super gross and messed up, but I think it's an interesting concept. With most of the accessory items laid down, I'm just doing more fine-tuning to get the room exactly how I want it. This right here is pretty close to the final product, but it still just doesn't feel quite right, so I'm making some small adjustments until I'm really happy with the effect. Another thing I added next to the kettle are a few scorpions and a cricket, following the theme of bugs being used as potion ingredients in this room. I feel like the scorpions add a really nice creep factor to the room, and the cricket cage looks really nice. Crickets also add a really nice ambiance to a room. I recommend adding them to areas on your island that seem too quiet to add a nice subtle sound effect to the space. This final part of the room decor is actually a few days later. I had to order a few additional items from Nook Shopping and do some trading on Nookazon to get my hands on the final few items to complete this room. Some of the changes I made were switching out the oil lamps for the wedding candles from the June wedding event, changing out the coffee grinder and the scale for a lab experiment set, and adding a few more items around the room, like the plasma ball on top of the stone stool and this cricket head wall mount above the doorway. Like I said in my previous witch hut decor video, I am constantly adjusting this area as I get new items or think of a better item, but this is essentially the final product. I'm really proud of how this room turned out. It's actually one of my favorite parts of my island. I'll probably continue to add or change items out as the Halloween updates give me more creepy item options. But without further ado, let's go ahead and move on to the basement. Wow, this room feels really bright after spending so much time in the creepy upstairs dark room. Starting out in this room, I'm using the same wallpaper and flooring as I did in the upstairs room, which was the cloud flooring and the black crown wall. As you'll see later on, I did end up changing these out near the end for a few different reasons, but if you wanted to create something similar on your island, then these items still work really well. This room I definitely struggled with much more than I did with the upstairs room, and I believe that stemmed from me not having as clear of a vision as I did with the potion brewing room. What I had in mind for this downstairs room was sort of a basement graveyard, but when I placed down the items for just the graveyard, it ended up feeling too plain, so I just kept adding more items to the room. My vision ended up shifting from a graveyard to something like a torture chamber, but even with that idea, I felt myself struggling to bring it to life. With how much I struggled creatively while creating this room, I still feel like it turned out okay, and the visitors I've had to this room have told me that they really like it, but I still find myself feeling a bit unsatisfied with it, and I'm fairly certain I'll end up completely changing this room out in the future. But for now, I'm okay with leaving the basement as it is. The last thing I want is for myself to get burnt out creatively trying to force this room to come together. The items that I focused on for this room are similar to the items that I used in my exterior witch hut decor, where I put an emphasis on things looking old or worn down. So with that in mind, I used lots of mossy or rusted items. I also put up a few statues like this Valiant statue in the back and this Zen style stone off to the side. I think these items work well together and give a nice creepy effect. I again prioritized candlelight as my only light source. As you can see here, I ended up changing out the cloud flooring in exchange for the swamp flooring, and I believe I changed that out again for dirt flooring near the end of the video. The reason I decided to change this out is because the cloud flooring has a light blue base, and I felt like it was making the room too light. However, I found out recently that you can place custom designs down as tiles over the cloud flooring, which covers the sky blue color but keeps the misty effect of the floor, so I think I will be giving that a try once I eventually redo this room in the future. Around this time is when I realized that I wasn't really happy with just the graveyard theme of this room because it just felt too plain and meh. So I grabbed these jail bars and created a jail cell in the corner of the room. This is where I started thinking of this room as sort of a torture chamber, but like I said, I still struggled to even bring that idea into reality. Here, I've stepped my character into the room to walk around and get a feel for it, to see if maybe actually being in the room felt better than just looking at the room in the room editing view. I did feel a little bit better about it once I physically stepped into it and started making adjustments, but I still felt like a lot needed to be done. So I'm adding more of these tall lanterns and a sauna heater for lighting, and I'm continuing to adjust the various statues and stones around the room until I feel like they look okay. Here, I'm playing with the wallpaper and flooring a bit more to see if they would help the room feel different without changing out any of the items. I did end up shifting the black crown wall out for this black brick wall, which still worked because basements don't have windows anyway, and the natural light from outside was still kept out. I was trying to find a nice nighttime outdoor wallpaper to use in this room instead, but I just didn't have anything that I felt worked. One thing I'm hoping for in the fall update is a nice spooky wallpaper to use in this room. Something like a cloudy night sky or a graveyard I think would help pull this room together a bit more. One thing that I'm realizing while I edit this video is how easy it is for us to be critical of ourselves, even in just a video game like Animal Crossing. The entire time I was working on this basement, I just felt frustrated with myself that I couldn't create something that looked as good as the rooms that I see created on social media, rather than just enjoying the creative process of trying to put something spooky together. I think it's important to remember that this is just a video game, and when I turn off my Nintendo Switch, how this little virtual basement looks has absolutely no bearing on my real life. Of course, that doesn't mean that I won't keep trying to make it look the way that I want it, and it's understandable to feel frustrated in any creative process, but it's also important to remember that this is just a game and nothing that I do in this room is permanent, and I can change out everything in this room at any time with absolutely no consequences. I hope that if you find yourself frustrated comparing yourself to other islands online, you remember that it's just a game, and at the end of the day, it's not that important, so don't be too hard on yourself. I guess that got a little depressing. Whoops. Anyway, this is the final product of my basement room. Even though I'm not 100% happy with how it turned out, I still think it feels pretty creepy in here, and it fits in well with the rest of the witch's hut so far, so it's totally okay. Here I'll go ahead and list all of the items and any custom designs that I happen to use, so you can pause the video and take a screenshot of it if you wish. If you notice any items that I haven't listed here, feel free to let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to let you know what the item is. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.